Dr. Watkins. She's going to introduce herself better than I could. But she's had many, basically what it is, she had some goals and dreams she wanted to accomplish, and she had some obstacles thrown her way, and she didn't let them stop her. I think it's very important for us to hear these stories for that reason. So I think all of us go through things. I mean, we know this way. Got our struggles, our self-doubt, people trying to pull us down at times. But ultimately, we want to be happy, we want to be successful. So it's very important we're around people to help uplift us. And even for Dr. Watkins, as successful as she is, and all these other great things I can say about her, I think also she feeds off our energy. So it's a community effort. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our special guest.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. A woman comes into the hospital. She's distraught because less than 48 hours prior, she was using methamphetamine. And because of the methamphetamine, she was paranoid and suspicious that her cat was trying to attack her. And so she stabbed her cat and put it in a dryer. And she regretted what she did when she came into the hospital. There was also a man who had lost his job, lost his health insurance, his wife left him. He felt hopeless and helpless, and he decided to overdose on his prescription medications. His daughter found him unconscious, called the police. He was placed on a 5150 and brought him to the hospital. There's a teen whose parents are divorcing. Her mom already has a new boyfriend. She's feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and so she cuts herself almost every day and has ongoing suicidal thoughts. And there's a woman who's 5'4" and 95 pounds, and she cannot eat regular meals. She has maybe 5 Cheerios for breakfast, and she exercises at the gym 3 hours a day. Her family's concerned. They tell her she's too thin, and they bring her in the hospital. These are the types of patients that I treat as a psychiatrist. I'm delighted to be here today to celebrate Black History Month. I'd like to share with you a little bit about what I do as a psychiatrist, and hopefully that will inspire some of you to consider careers in mental health. Maybe some of you out there want to be doctors. Maybe you watch Private Practice or Grey's Anatomy and think I could do that. But I also want to share with you my story about some significant challenges that I had to deal with on my journey, and I want to leave you with some inspiration. I had very difficult decisions to make when I was your age, and so I want you to imagine yourself in my shoes at that time. So let's start off. One of the questions that I get asked most frequently is, what is the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? I'm a psychiatrist, so I'm actually a medical doctor. After high school, I went to college and medical school, internship and residency, because there's a lot to learn in order to treat patients. I have my own patients I see in my office in Walnut Creek, but I also take care of patients at Willow Rock, which is a teen psychiatric facility, and John George. Okay, so many of the patients that come in are placed on a 5150. Now, how many of you know what a 5150 is? Do you want to tell me what you think the 5150 is? No? It's a mental health hold, basically, and there are only several professionals who can place a hold. Someone like me, a doctor, and also someone like my friend Charles Gibson, who's a retired Oakland police officer. He worked with the Oakland Police for 30 years, and he's here. We're able to keep them in the hospital for up to 72 hours. And so they don't have the freedom to leave the hospital. They're actually usually on a locked unit. Okay, they can't just come and go. So why do you think we'd be able to do that? To take away someone's freedom, someone's rights for a period of up to 72 hours? To help them, yes.
To help them understand and change their mentality for the next step.
Yeah, to help them maybe come up with some tools, some coping skills to have a different approach. There are very specific criteria that have to be met in order to keep a patient safe and in the hospital. So can you think of some specific reasons why you may not want someone to have freedom just to come and go and act on their actions, on their thoughts?
Because they're a threat to society and a threat to themselves too.
Excellent, yes. So if they're dangerous to others, meaning they're having homicidal thoughts, they want to kill somebody, or if they're dangerous to themselves, meaning that they're having suicidal thoughts and there's risk that they might harm themselves, or if they're what we call gravely disabled. So you all been to the city of San Francisco or certain parts of Oakland, you see homeless people out there kind of talking to themselves, a bit disheveled and such. Some of those people have chronic mental illness, and they have a very difficult time getting clothing, getting shelter, getting food. And for some of those patients, they will come in on a 5150. And we work as a team, so I'm kind of captain of the team. There's a social worker, nurses, therapists, and we all work together to be an advocate for patients. And do you all know what I mean by being an advocate for someone? It's speaking up for someone who really can't speak up for themselves. And so I really enjoy that because I feel that if it wasn't for the work that we do, some of these patients wouldn't be able to function outside the community. So I love what I do every day, and I really feel my patients live better lives as a result of some of the interventions that the team and I are able to do. But my road towards doing this was very difficult. So when I was in high school around our age, after my freshman year, my mom decided that she was going to move us to Jackson, Mississippi. So that's far away. I mean, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and we moved all the way to Jackson, Mississippi. And I was very upset with my mother. My mom saw it as an opportunity for her to make more money and a better paying job in a state with a lower cost of living. But after my freshman year of high school, I was just devastated because I had my friends from junior high and elementary school, and I thought it was just very, very unfair. And so then when I started 10th grade in Jackson, I went to an all-black high school. Every student was black. Now I'm black. No, I'm black. But I experienced culture shock because I wasn't used to that. I was used to much more diversity. And so a lot of students there like to, wear, like the girls would wear heels to school, would be very dressed up, and they even had a contest for the most beautiful girl and the most handsome guy in the school called Beauty and Beau. And I just was so different from that, and so they teased me about the way I talked and the way I acted, and I felt very alone, and I felt that my mom didn't understand. I felt that no one could really understand what I was going through, and I missed my friends in Arizona. So I started dating someone who was older than me. So at the time I was 15 and he was 20. So he was like grown, right, to me. So way too old for me at 15, right? So I'm glad that many of you recognize, well, some of you recognize that that's inappropriate, okay? Because I was a sophomore in high school, and this was someone who had a job and a car, was in the military, and for me, he represented a great escape for me, that I could have some freedom. And so I started just rebelling against my mom. I'd get really defiant. I'd sneak out at night, come back home and try to get back in. And sometimes she just didn't know what to do with me. And I was becoming more and more rebellious because I was so mad at her for moving me all the way to Jackson, Mississippi. So as our relationship progressed, Daryl had wanted me to have a baby. And I told him that I wanted to become a doctor, and he put a lot of pressure on me. And we were less and less careful, and I ended up becoming pregnant when I was 16 years old. And so my family was very disappointed. I felt a lot of shame, and there wasn't anyone I could tell at school. And so when there were opportunities to go to the fair and go to the amusement park and stuff, I couldn't go. I couldn't go on the rides. And then ultimately I had to go to a special school called Teenage Mother School, TAMS. And it was a place where they had a more flexible schedule, they had larger desks, and they were able to send our work home if we couldn't come in because we weren't feeling well. And so my relationship with Daryl became more and more rocky, and he would yell at me, he'd try to hit me, he was becoming so abusive. But again, I felt so scared and so alone, and I didn't want people to say, oh, I told you so, you shouldn't have been dating that guy anyway. And so I had my son Jonathan the night of my senior prom. Okay. It was very lonely, it was a very lonely experience. And I realized that my life would never be the same. In fact, the next morning, the nurse gave me a form. And on the form, it said mother's name. And I put my mom's name. And she said, no, you're supposed to put your name there. And I just didn't know. And I realized there was a lot that I was going to have to learn about being a grown-up, being an adult. And after I had Jonathan, I thought, gosh, I don't want to raise a black boy on my own. I don't want him to have a lot of problems not having a male in the house. And so I was 17, and David, well, I called him, his real name is David, but in the book I changed his name to Daryl. So. Daryl basically was in agreement as far as getting married. And I knew when I was sitting there at the courthouse, I knew I didn't love him, but I thought, this is really what's best for Jonathan. We'll be a family. And I actually had to ask my mom permission to get married. And because I was 17, I wasn't old enough to get married. So I had asked my mom's permission, and she reluctantly gave me permission to get married. And so I got married to him. And he became even more and more abusive, but I had such low self-esteem. I thought, I'm used goods, who else would want me? He's all I have. I was getting more and more depressed, and I thought, what guy my age would want an instant family? So I stayed with Gerald for a while, but then the abuse got so bad that I just couldn't stay with him anymore, and so I decided to divorce him. So there I was, 18 years old with Jonathan. I was pregnant at 16, married at 17, divorcing at 18. So this picture was taken just after my 18th birthday. And it was just Jonathan and me. And I thought, I have to turn this around. I have to move forward with my dream of becoming a doctor. I didn't know how I was going to do it. My mom was a single mom. She had 2 daughters, my older sister and me. She had never been to college. I didn't have any relatives who could give me some guidance. But I just felt the strong feeling like I have to do this. I have to create a better life for my little family of 2, Jonathan and me. And I felt that I had to do it for him. So I applied to college and was accepted at the University of Nevada, Reno, go Wolfpack. But I was struggling to make ends meet as a single parent. So I would have to take the bus 4 times a day to get Jonathan to daycare, get to school, take my classes, go back and pick up Jonathan back home. And you all know it snows in Reno. I mean, it was really challenging to get around. And I had to find jobs. So sometimes I would bring Jonathan with me. I would do babysitting jobs and such. So I was struggling, but I applied for a lot of scholarships, and I want to encourage each of you to apply for every scholarship you can, because the time you take researching and preparing your applications and essays for these scholarships can really pay off. Because I always felt broke during school. It was really challenging. And so I applied for scholarships. And let's see, I was able to get a pretty amazing scholarship. USA Today acknowledges the top 20 students in the nation who've done work volunteering, research, who show a lot of academic promise. And Jonathan and I were selected, and they actually gave me $2,500, which was a lot of money for me. It was very, very helpful. And fortunately, there was no other big news that day in 1997, February 6, 1997, that they put us on the front page. And that was a really amazing experience because that opened up so many doors for me. And I also decided to go on a game show to make some money. I was really creative, trying to find ways to support Jonathan and me. So I wanted to show you a clip. Let's see if I can play it here, if it'll cooperate. You know what game show this is.
Melanie Watkins, how are you? Good. From Reno. You're going to school in that part of the country?
I'm a senior pre-med student at the University of Nevada, Reno.
Oh, great. A 3-year-old son?
Yes, named Jonathan.
So we're pretty proud of that guy. What do you like to do when you're not busy with him and school? Probably not.
Not too much time left. I like to write my journal and watch movies.
All right. You write like personal stuff?
Yeah, just a line.
Okay, nice to meet you, Melanie. Good luck to you.
Okay, so I wonder if any of you can solve the puzzle coming up. You want?
Ha 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 ha.